What's up? My name is Pastor Titus, and we are doing our sermon shortcut, which takes the Wednesday sermon and condenses it just a little bit. Right now, I'm going to be talking about our first sermon in this series called Exodus, God's plan for his people. And this week's message was an unlikely tool in God's hands. This is talking about the birth and the early life of Moses, how he was called by God, basically into ministry, used as an instrument, as a tool for God to lead the Israelite people out of Egypt. The first thing we see from the story is that God defies dark circumstances. The beginning of Moses' life was very bleak. He was born in a time where the Pharaoh was telling Hebrew women to just throw their babies into the Nile River, essentially trying to limit the population because the Hebrews were growing so numerous. But Moses' mother kept him for about 3 months, hid him, and then he became too big, so she just put him in a basket and sent him down the river. And so we see from the very beginning, God had his hand on Moses' life. And in this, as he grows up, because he was rescued from the river from Pharaoh's daughter, and she kept him and nurtured him and helped him grow, Moses also made bad decisions. He was steeped in sin. He observed an Egyptian beating a fellow Hebrew, took it into his own hands, killed that Egyptian, and then fled to the country of Midian. And so we see from here that despite some of those circumstances, God met him in Midian. He met Moses in the wilderness. He met him despite his sin. It says here in Exodus chapter 2, verse 15, when Pharaoh heard of this, he tried to kill Moses, but Moses fled from Pharaoh and went to live in Midian, where he sat down by a well. And so we see that all through Moses' story, God is pursuing him, and he still further pursues him because Moses meets a man in this far-off distant land named Jethro, marries one of his daughters, and just begins living there. But God appears to Moses through the flames of a burning bush. And understand, for Moses to have this leadership journey, he had to be entirely set apart. God had a specific, unique purpose and plan for Moses' life. And he appears to him in this burning bush that doesn't seem to be burning up, but it's consumed by flames. And he speaks to Moses, and Moses comes up with all sorts of excuses, but God still pursued him despite his sin. Moses, in these different excuses, says, I'm nobody, I'm hard of speech, and then finally he just tells God, I don't want to go. But then it says God becomes angry with him and says, no, you're going to. And so Moses eventually submits to that and decides to go to Egypt. And what we see in this story is that Christ is truly revealed in all things. Christ as well was born at a time when it was not safe for babies to be born. He was born in a situation where his mom went to great lengths to spare his life. Same with Moses. He was born at a time where he was being tested by God. Even though he was God himself, there was a moment in the wilderness that Christ was tested by Satan, and Moses was also driven into the wilderness, and God, speaking through the burning bush, was testing Moses. Are you going to obey my will, or are you going to go your own way? And we see in Moses a broken image of Christ, who's the ultimate Redeemer and the ultimate Savior of the world. So I just want to encourage you. God has plans for you. He wants to speak to you, and he wants to know you. And so get to know his word, get to know his will.